Are we rolling? Oh, it's boiling. So interesting and captivating. Hello, I am Emily from the blog Feelin Whisky, and today I am going to show you how to make a Mushroom Wellington. It is the vegetarian answer to a beef Wellington, which is a super delicious dish made out of a very tender cut of meat, wrapped in puff pastry and baked until it's crispy and golden brown and delicious. Today we're making it with a bunch of different mushrooms, and it's going to be so delicious that your friends and family won't even care that you're serving them a plant-based option. So let's get cracking. So we're gonna preheat the oven to 400, and we're going to line a baking sheet with parchment paper and set it aside. I'm using this Big Daddy. I would recommend using your Big Daddy if you have one. We're going to use this very large pan. If you've ever cooked spinach before, you know you can put in the whole bag and you end up with like 5 leaves. It's witchcraft and I don't know how it happens, but so we're gonna put in more than we think we need. I might just put in this whole bag. Oh yeah, let's do it, why not? Spoon me. And that's gonna take a hot minute, so I'm just gonna leave it there and I'm gonna cut up some onions. We need onions. It's just a fact of life. And today we're going to use 2. We're using yellow onions and we're going to slice them thinly and then we're going to caramelize them in a pan. Get them all nice and sweet and savory. This is gonna be good. While we're here, I'm going to teach you how to cut an onion the right way because a lot of people don't know and it makes me really sad. So I just cut off the bottom end and then I'm going to cut right through the root and peel off the outside layer, leaving the root intact. I'll be like, Emily, why are you leaving the root intact? Well, you'll see. And then with my half, I'm going to just slice it this way, being careful not to hack off my fingers. And then I'm going to slice it through this way. And then when I cut it, it will fall into the most perfect dice you've ever seen. It's gonna be magic. Watch this. Countertop is really high and my hands are shaking. Haven't even had any coffee today. Wow. It's like magic. I wasn't supposed to dice this. Slice. It's okay. We're moving on. Slice the onion. Don't dice it. But if we have a little bit in there, it's okay. It's texture. Now you know how to dice an onion. You're welcome. And this is what you're supposed to be doing, and what I would have done if I had been paying attention. Oh my god. Ugh. I can't get it off. Is this a good shot? Oh, I'm just crying because this dish is gonna be really beautiful. Now that that's over, I'm just going to put these on a plate and then we're gonna slice up our mushrooms. You know what we're missing at this party is a pinch of salt, because salt makes everything taste good. So salt your spinach. So as you can see, we start with this, a full pan, and as it wilts, it's going to disappear. Okay, so now that we are looking nice and wilty, I'm going to transfer this to a plate and let it cool all the way. And now that we have our onions all sliced and diced, they're supposed to just be sliced, but if you dice them, it's okay. We're going to take some button mushrooms. I have 8 ounces of button mushrooms sliced. You can also use baby Bella if that's what you're into. And we're gonna put them with some butter in that pan and cook them down. I'm gonna start with 2 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna do like a medium lowish heat. You don't want these to brown too much. We want them to sweat. So that's a real cooking term, don't laugh at me. So we're really just trying to get the moisture out so that they get nice and caramelized and broken down, just like those super delicious golden caramelized onions that you get on like hot dogs and sandwiches and stuff. That's what we're going for. Melt the butter. Now that the butter is nice and melted, we're going to add in our onions. with a pinch of salt and some black pepper. Ooh, you like that? Secret ingredient, it's in the pantry. Just a little glug of maple syrup. Some people use brown sugar, some people use regular sugar, but really you just need a source of sugar to help with the caramelization process. Just a little. You don't want it to be sweet. While those onions are doing their thing over there, I'm going to slice up my portobellos. These are what is going to give it a nice sort of meaty texture. And we're cooking these separately because I like to put them on the top so that it's not super bumpy, but if you want to just throw these in with the other mushrooms just to save on time, you can do that. I care about presentation, so I'm gonna do it the hard way. And I'm just wiping these off with a damp cloth. You're not supposed to rinse mushrooms, technically. They already have a lot of water content on their own, so if you rinse them, they just kind of get soggy. And that's not what we want. So I'm just wiping them off. I'm going to slice them into kind of thick planks. Now that our onions are looking nice and caramelized, or at least they're beginning to, we're going to add in our button mushrooms. I'm gonna throw in just another little pinch of salt. Salt as you go, makes it more delicious. We're building layers of flavor, you know? We're just gonna let those cook down for a little bit until they have released all of their juices and all of the juices have evaporated from the pan. Now we are going to mince some garlic. A lot of people hate mincing garlic by hand, but I think that a garlic press is a waste of drawer space. I have 4 cloves, but they're pretty small, so if you have big cloves, you can use 2. This is a really tall countertop. Little lesson for you. Always crush your garlic before you mince it because it activates the component in garlic that is good for you. It's called allicin, and I learned that from Brad Leone on Bon Appetit's cooking channel. Shout out. It also makes it easier to peel. Wow. Oh, jeez. ASMR. Cutting off the butts. Hold on to your butts. Okay. These are looking pretty good. So now look how delicious and caramelized these are. So we're just gonna add in some minced garlic and then about 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme. Just cook it until it smells good. So now in that same pan over medium-lowish heat, we're just gonna add in our portobellos that we sliced. Another little bit of salt. And we're just gonna let these cook down again until they are nice and softened and caramelized. Now I have these teeny tiny potatoes. Literally, they're called teeny tiny potatoes at Trader Joe's. Just get any little potato, little red potatoes will work. These will work. I wouldn't use russets because they'll probably be too starchy, but I'm just gonna slice these pretty thin. And we're gonna layer these in the Wellington just to add a little body, you know. Don't slice your finger off. Remember that baking sheet that we lined with parchment paper 8,000 years ago? Well, it's back. Let's use it. To make it a true Wellington, you need puff pastry, which is what I have. I got it. I only need 1 sheet, so I can make another Wellington if I feel like cooking another Wellington. Where'd those tiny little scissors go? The return of the eyebrow scissors. We are going to unroll our puff pastry. Classic beef Wellington has a layer of Dijon mustard in between the fillet and the pastry. It adds a nice little tang, a little bit of saltiness, and we're gonna do that same thing here. So I'm not measuring. I'm just gonna follow my heart. Going to use a pastry brush to brush this into a thin layer. So you don't want your taste buds to get obliterated with Dijon mustard. That's not a fun time. It is now the time to layer our Mushroom Wellington. So we're going to start with our sliced potatoes, and I'm just gonna shingle them a little bit. And I'm putting these on the bottom because they don't have a lot of water content, so they will make the pastry nice and crisp. And I'm just doing this in the center third because we are going to fold this over itself. And I'm leaving a little gap here at the bottom so I can fold that in too. We're going to put on some of our onion and mushroom mixture. Everything in this video sounds damp. Some spinach. This would also be really delicious with goat cheese, and I didn't realize that until today. But if you have goat cheese, gee whiz, I sure hope this closes. The rest of this, rest of your spinach. Stack the portobellos. Now comes the fun part, and by fun I mean terrifying. So we're gonna fold it. It has a little bit of give, so you can stretch it a little bit, but don't rip it. Like a little gift. And then fold in those ends. You have to flip it over. It's like a little burrito. I'm going to endorse this as the one true way to flip over a Mushroom Wellington. I'm going to do one of these, and then flip the whole thing. Boom. You have to cut little air vents in it. I like to do this on the diagonal because it looks pretty that way. And we're going to use a fork to poke some holes in the side so it vents there too. And then we're just gonna brush it with a little egg wash and pop her in the oven. And this is going to help it get nice and golden brown and crispy. So it is a showstopper when you put it on your table. In she goes. We're just gonna bake that for about 30 minutes, and then you just have to let it rest for a minute before you slice into it and feast. And boom, after 30 minutes in the oven, there you have it, a delicious and super crispy Mushroom Wellington. Listen to that. Hope you can hear that. So we're just gonna let this rest for like 5 minutes before we transfer it to a serving platter and slice it up and enjoy it with all of our friends and family.